and welcome. You're watching FYI. I'm Rishika Barua. WhatsApp is all set to introduce a new security feature to encrypt your chat backup. What does this mean? On the show, we'll try and break down what this means and what you need to do most importantly to enable it. So on WhatsApp, a lot of us back up our chats, photos, videos, documents, files that are exchanged on the platform. Now, WhatsApp chats are end-to-end encrypted, which essentially means that our data is converted into a code so nobody else can access it. So while our chats are protected, the backup of these chats, which is essentially stored on a Google Drive or iCloud, is not protected. So once the chat is backed up on Google Drive or on iCloud, they are essentially not private anymore, or our chat backup, you can say, is vulnerable. Currently, the chat backup is not stored in an encrypted format and therefore can be accessed by third parties, by cyber criminals, and even by law enforcement if they do obtain a search warrant. But now, WhatsApp is going to offer backups with end-to-end encryption before they are uploaded on these cloud servers. So WhatsApp is going to essentially be encrypting your chat backup. So far, if you uploaded your backup once it was on the cloud, which it goes by default if you've got the chat backup option enabled, then you have question marks over the protection of your data. WhatsApp is trying to eliminate those question marks. So what is end-to-end encryption? End-to-end encryption means only you and the contact can read and access what you send. WhatsApp cannot see the contents of these messages or listen to calls. Only the message recipient can access what is sent. This happens automatically. There's no need for any special settings to turn on chat backup encryption. Now, how does this end-to-end backup encryption really work? As a user, what do you need to know? What do you need to do in order to enable this option? Rubina explains.
It's simple really. Think of encrypted backups as password protected folders. When WhatsApp encrypts your backup data with a 64-digit encryption key to lock up the data, it uses a 64-digit password to lock your content, and without the password, the content cannot be accessed. WhatsApp, however, is going one step ahead to offer users the options to truly secure their personal data away from hackers, but also from WhatsApp itself. Users will have the option to keep encryption key or password offline on their phone or computer without giving any access to WhatsApp. This ensures that the chat platform has absolutely no way to access data from the backup, and the users will have to supply the encryption key to restore the backup file. In case a user loses the encryption key, the platform will have no way to restore data. However, for users who may not want to manage their own encryption keys, WhatsApp is also offering a cloud-based service where the encryption key can be stored. In this case, users will need to set a password that can be reset in case the user forgets it. Creating an encrypted backup will also automatically delete the unencrypted backup file, ensuring complete privacy and security.
Alright, so what's really the impact as far as us users are concerned? This encrypted chat backup is essentially going to prevent any third party from accessing our chat history. Sensitive personal information is going to be protected, and even backup servers are going to be protected. So Google or Apple, depending on whether you're using Android or Apple smartphones, neither of these companies will also be able to access your data. So that's essentially the impact in a nutshell. Now, to understand more about end-to-end encryption, chat backup encryption, what does this mean? Do you even need this feature? Is it enabled by default? To answer all of those questions, Dhruv Bhutani, editor of Android Authority, host Untitled Gadget podcast, joins us. Amit Dubey, ethical hacker and cybersecurity expert. Kazim Rizvi, the founding director of The Dialogue. And N.S. Napinai, advocate of the Supreme Court and founder of the Cyber Sathi Foundation, also joins us. Thank you all very much for being with us. You know, when you talk about something like end-to-end encryption, or you talk about chat backup encryption, all of these sound like big hefty words that a lot of us common folk don't necessarily understand. So Dhruv Bhutani, I'm going to come to you first. Explain to our viewers what is this new feature that WhatsApp is going to introduce? This is not yet enabled on your app, by the way. And how is it going to enhance user experience or user privacy?
Well, I mean, the entire idea here is not essentially just to enhance the user experience. It's about your privacy and maintaining control over your own personal data. I know it's not enabled by default, but this is a feature that everybody should be making use of, because it's not just about, government intervention. At the end of the day, WhatsApp is storing all your backups on cloud servers by Google and Apple. And if there's a hack on any of their servers, or if your passwords get leaked, or there could be 100 different ways that an untoward person could get access to that data. And if they do get access to the data, the backups so far are in an unencrypted form, which basically gives them open access to the files, to photographs, to everything else that has been backed up.
Right.
So even if you don't have anything specific to hide, it's basic hygiene that you encrypt your data when it's being stored on a cloud server.
Right. And Amit Dubey, if you want to come in here, even WhatsApp has no access to the end-to-end encrypted chats at the moment. But with the chat backup being encrypted, WhatsApp is not going to have access to this either. That's what they claim.
Yeah, definitely. In fact, Rishika, if you notice these recent chat leaks which happened during various case investigations,
yes,
maybe these Bollywood actors or politicians or journalists, it happened because their drives were compromised. And it is very easy to compromise a drive because it is just protected through a password. And if it is not multi-factor, if it is not two-factor, either a brute force can be applied on it, or a social engineering-based attempt can be done where an email will be sent to them with a copyright notice or something, and they'll put their password on their own. Once this password is out, the other person will not only be able to see your entire content which is there on drive, but they'll be able to see your WhatsApp histories, chats, everything. And that was really very, very serious, because normally we use WhatsApp with a notion that nobody can see that. Nobody would know about it. So we have a inherent notion about and security consideration when we do something on WhatsApp. But when we are talking about other kind of data like personal photographs and all, we may not be worried that much. But especially for WhatsApp chat, I think everybody is very conscious. So that's why there was a special need of such kind of encryption, though Google Drive has given encryption facilities, but that was not sufficient. And now with this feature, because not only WhatsApp, but nobody else will be able to access it, they have really given a very high-end encryption, first of all. And second, to have this key very, very private, they have given an option to the user that you can write it down on your paper and you can keep it with you. Nobody will ever get to know about it.
I'm going to come back. Yes, I'm going to come back to you on the process, and we've tried to explain that process in our explainer as well. But I think there are going to be lots of questions as and when this feature is enabled, and a lot of people, including myself, were really guilty of not even going and reading the fine print of what's available in the settings. But Kazim Rizvi, if I can come to you at the moment, if this privacy feature is as good as WhatsApp claims it is, which essentially means that your backup is encrypted, not Google, not cloud, not WhatsApp, nobody has access except for the recipient and the person who sent the message. It almost sounds too good to be true. What's the backlash that one can expect? Because of course, there is an entire angle, exactly what Amit Dubey just said, that there are chat leaks that have happened. Security agencies, for instance, have gone down this route for investigative purposes. We won't sit in judgment of right or wrong. But do you anticipate there's going to be a backlash to this?
I think there are two things over here we need to understand. One is that this is giving an additional layer of privacy to the users when it comes to their personal chats. So let's look at what this update is doing. I think definitely it's a step forward when it comes to securing the privacy of the users. Their chats are now secured even in the cloud storage because it's end-to-end encrypted. Talking about law enforcement, we have seen that there are many other ways where law enforcement can work with platforms, with organizations when it comes to accessing metadata which is critical for law enforcement purposes.
Okay.
So I don't think that there is a need to access private chats when it comes to law enforcement purpose. Metadata actually helps solve a lot of crimes already. And there are many ways
Explain to our viewers what is metadata. What are you talking about?
So metadata is basically data of data. Let's say, the timestamp or the IP address of the message which have been sent. The chats, which are personal chats, which are always end-to-end secured and encrypted, those will always be there, but there could be some data around with respect to the timestamp of or the location of the person. Those kind of information, that is called metadata, helps law enforcement in doing its job already. So you don't need to access personal chats when it comes to law enforcement purpose. In fact, on the contrary, it is a big challenge if personal chats get leaked. That can also compromise the security of country. It can compromise the privacy of the user. So the idea is to balance both privacy and security.
Yes.
And the idea is also to make sure that you give the best privacy experience, while at the same time there are already existing methods when it comes to collaboration, when it comes to data analytics, which the law enforcement can do to help solve crimes.
All right. So you're saying that law enforcement has a multitude of other options, therefore you're not anticipating a pushback. But then let me bring you into the conversation, Ms. Napinai, because the other important issue that this has raised, and if you go on to read about what WhatsApp is going to do by encrypting chat backups, you realize how vulnerable your data is as we speak, because this feature has not yet been enabled.
Absolutely. And there is one primary issue which I would really want to highlight here, which is that WhatsApp should bring as much transparency about what is the extent of this privacy protection that they are talking about. There is no point in us only talking about a one-sided narrative here. So I'll just make it very simple. We are all talking about how encryption increases a layer for privacy. It's absolutely right. But you have to also know that the data is accessible in raw format in your mobile, in your devices. Wherever you may have WhatsApp, if it is in your computer system, there also it is accessible in raw text form. Similarly, the recipient's devices also has it in raw text form. Kazim raised a very important issue about metadata. So WhatsApp needs to explain, and these are things they are bound to do under law. Once the PDP bill comes out, they will have to explain what exactly is the data, because everybody assumes metadata, which is the underlying data, which doesn't talk about the messages or the voice messages you may be sharing, but the metadata will be identifying you as an individual. So it's not really non-personal data, it is personal data. So in law, therefore, if you really look at it, and I also agree there may not really be a pushback to this, because on one hand, you are offering privacy to a user at a stage of storage. But on the other, where a law enforcement agency needs raw data, they have these two devices to take it from, your device and mine. So there is no reason for them to go into this whole encryption aspect itself. Law provides you that opening, and it is mandatory once somebody is called upon to submit it. And if they don't submit the data, adverse inference will be drawn against them.
Will be drawn, exactly. Dhruv, if I can come back to you at the moment, the other question that a lot of people actually have is the merits of chat backup. I mean, until and unless if you've exchanged sensitive information, documents, on WhatsApp, why not just download it and store it on your device? Is there really merit in backing up your chats, given the fact that they're not encrypted just yet, especially the WhatsApp chats, if one is to specifically talk about that?
I mean, of course, there is merit. For example, if you're switching phones, you could start with a blank slate, but not everybody wants to do that. They could just be, personal conversations with a loved one that you don't want to lose out on. And that's the primary reason why you would go for a chat backup. I mean, that's basically it.
All right. So apart from, the fact that you want these chats to be stored, there's no merit in it, because currently, like I asked, if you look at what WhatsApp is going to do, it also in a certain sense points out how vulnerable your chat backup is as we speak.
I mean, even today, WhatsApp gives you the option not to have the backup.
Yeah.
you can of course choose that. Like if you're concerned about your cloud storage getting hacked,
Yes.
you of course have the option not to do that.
Okay.
But yeah, I feel the encrypted backups, that's the right way forward, and that gives you the option. And in fact, WhatsApp is taking a very pro-consumer step by giving you two different ways to encrypt your data, including the holding your own encryption key, like Mr. Amit talked about earlier.
Right. Okay. What does this encryption key actually mean, and what's going to be the process for you as a user on your phone to enable this feature? Is it going to be automatic? We'll delve into that. I'll also ask our viewers the important question of what does this mean for WhatsApp calls and the data that is stored from those calls. So those questions coming up, but on the other side of a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. We're discussing WhatsApp's new safety feature, which is basically your chat backup, which is now going to be encrypted. This is a feature that is still going to be, they've announced it, it's still not active on your devices, but what does this feature mean? Do you really need it? We're in conversation with a panel of experts helping us understand everything about this. How is this feature going to work? Amit Dubey, we know there's going to be a 62-digit encryption key. Take us through the process of what this is going to look like.
So once this feature will be enabled and you would like to choose the option to keep your backup encrypted, it will give you a 64-bit key, 64-digit key. Now, because this is a very long key, you can either keep it with you can note it down with pen and paper, because every time you want to restore your backup, you would need this key. Or if you would like, so there is an option that you can also keep this key with the WhatsApp key vault. So they have given an online cloud to store the key. But then, why this is important to understand, because to access your key, you can access it through a password. Now, this password can be reset. So if suppose you forget your password, there's an option to reset your password and then you can access the key. Now, if somebody wants to get the access of your backup, they would need to have that password in case you have kept your key with the WhatsApp key vault. If it is with pen and paper, nobody will be able to access your key and they can never decrypt your data. But suppose you have chosen an option to keep it with WhatsApp cloud, and then it is accessible through a password. There is a slight vulnerability, because there's a possibility that somebody will get the access of your password through some social engineering, and they may try to reset it, or they may get the key. But then the decryption will happen only with your own systems, like the device which has the ownership of the that WhatsApp number.
Okay.
So now there is another vulnerability, that because WhatsApp has recently added a support of multiple devices. If somebody managed to clone your WhatsApp, because it is possible now, the same number can be executed on multiple devices.
Okay.
So in that situation, if they create that situation, like they have a cloned WhatsApp, and then they get the reset of your key, and if your actual 64-digit key is in the cloud, they can get the access of it and they can decrypt your backup as well.
So
these are the vulnerabilities; those are still there. But then, because there are multiple things to do to achieve this, it is still quite difficult and quite impossible.
What if you lose the key? What happens then?
If you lose the key, you can't.
Down. You didn't digitally store the key, and you noted it down, and you lose the key. Then what happens?
It's almost impossible. Actually, it may take years to decrypt that data.
Okay, so your data is essentially lost if you've lost the key. Kazim Rizvi, what does this mean for WhatsApp calls? A lot of people now doing WhatsApp calls, whether it's for work or whether it's better network. People have Wi-Fi at home, so they're resorting to WhatsApp calls.
Look, I think WhatsApp calls are also encrypted, end-to-end encrypted. So let's say if you're making a call and it's a video call or let's say an audio call, that call is already end-to-end encrypted. And if you're not, there's no backup in terms of if you're not backing it up, then there is no record. It sort of mostly happens with text and images. And let's say if you're sharing classified documents with somebody, which you think are very important and you have a backup, you may want to access it later, but you want to keep it secure, so you can encrypt your backup and make sure that nobody else get access to it.
No, my question is that we know WhatsApp calls are also end-to-end backed up, because there is end-to-end user encryption even now. But is there a way for anybody to listen into those calls? Are there any vulnerabilities when it comes to WhatsApp calls?
No, there are no vulnerabilities. Those calls work exactly like, let's say if you're sending a text or a message, it's the same process which happens. and that's how those calls are secured.
Ms.
I think
Napinai,
the important.
yes, viewers have also asked questions like, with the chat backup being encrypted, and whenever the new upgrade, to our existing WhatsApp comes and that feature is enabled, what about sharing OTPs, sharing, say, card information, things like that, which, has been a big no-no so far. Everybody advises you not to share those things online. Will that perhaps be made easier?
No, you would still not be advised very strongly not to share OTPs or, passwords, etc. online. It is irrelevant whether it is encrypted or not. The assumption will be of safety versus security. As far as sharing OTP, etc. through WhatsApp chats are concerned, to the extent that during transmission it is encrypted. So to that extent, you do have a better level of protection than when it is an SMS, etc. But otherwise, there is no real difference in these two.
Right.
So,
but a lot of people, for the sake of convenience, say, will save their their card numbers or an image of their cards on a WhatsApp chat with a family member. Is that, we know that a lot of those practices are not safe, but are they going to get safer?
Well, I don't see it being an increased level of safety, except to the extent that if you are saving certain content like this, which is private, on an encrypted storage medium, definitely there is a higher level of storage. See, I'm a lawyer, so I'm not here to talk about the technology aspects.
No, of course, I'm just talking about vulnerabilities.
From a cyber crime perspective,
yes,
I get where you're going with that. In fact, Rishika, I must add this. When you asked Amit that question, I was so reminded of this Big Bang theory where they lose the encryption key and all the cryptocurrency, therefore.
Yes.
So that's something that's very real. I just wanted to bring that in also in a lighter way.
Right.
But legally speaking, there is no real impediment. But there is actually one aspect which I also wanted to highlight. See, as employees, many persons, and today with the work from home or BYOD, etc., or bring your own device to work, there is a lot of personal data in these devices.
Yes.
So when a backup is there, and then when you're exiting a company and you're giving it away, here is your opportunity to ensure that you're protecting all this data. So on all these fronts, definitely it's a welcome move. I don't see this as being an impediment for law enforcement. And I personally feel, I'm so sorry the lights went off over here, so I'm blanked out. But I don't see this as a negative aspect. The only thing that I wanted to highlight is, whilst WhatsApp is repeatedly emphasizing the privacy angle, it is only right that they also point out what is it that we as users do not have privacy on. And one final word of caution. We are still fighting the fight about whether we want to accept the new privacy policy.
Right.
So please watch out on whether by accepting the new feature, you're giving a backdoor entry to WhatsApp to accepting the new privacy policy.
Well, we promise to continue to read that fine print and discuss it here, because I think this conversation has been very useful. There are over 2 billion WhatsApp users in India, in the world, and more than 500 million here in India. So this is a conversation that's relevant to a lot of people. Thank you all so much for your time and joining us on this edition of FYI. That's all the time we have. News and updates continue on the other side. Stay with us.